Hey y'all, welcome back to Let's Talk Sis. This is your girl Tamika Howell. I'm your host, and I am here today with Megan Carrillo.
Hi.
Hey Megan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
So Megan is gracing us with her presence today. And I just want her to introduce herself. First, I don't really know how we met. I just know we popped up on Facebook somehow.
Yeah.
Maybe you do. You can help us.
Yeah, I had actually posted some things with hashtags about police reform and building that community with police and getting community members involved. And then you kind of jumped in and said that you were interested in helping to foster that relationship.
Oh, yeah. That could be definitely. Because I'm sure that was around the time the protests were going on. And we're trying to figure out how we can get the police to see our side, kind of, is what I want to do. Are we still on that?
Last contact I've had, they've kind of been ignoring me, so I'm just kind of being a pest right now. I am out in Buckeye, so I feel like they get the impression that it's not necessarily a concern for that part of the valley, and I disagree. So I've just been continuously emailing and trying to get something going, although they've thrown up COVID as a reason, like, well, we can't get together, we can't, so which is legit in some ways, but I want to start really getting relationship building, because we do have a Black community out there as well, and I feel like it's important that we we need to be proactive with that relationship rather than reactive.
Yeah. And I think that's the issue. We've been reactive so long. I was telling on some of the, if y'all have not been tapping into the podcast, it's tap in, okay? But the podcast, we have been talking about those things, and I think that, when we talk about looting and rioting, we're talking about reactiveness. We're talking about, and I've been saying that is the voice of the unheard. I'm not saying it's right. Listen, I don't riot, I don't loot, but I mean...
But you can understand
I mean...
you can relate to the reaction.
How many times we going... It's just like any other thing. When you're trying to talk and you're being ignored and ignored and ignored and ignored, you kind of blow up a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, however, I would hope we would blow up a different way, but...
But how?
Sorry, not sorry?
Yeah, I mean...
Sorry, not sorry?
How long can you expect someone to do that?
So, tell me why. So I think the group is called Real Change by Real Women.
Yes.
Is that the change? So why did you start that?
I just felt like that women have so much to do for this world. Like, we have such awesome things to give, and that a lot of the change that we're seeking can come from women. And so I just really wanted to unite women in general, and then also as a white woman, learn to...
Are you white? Just
saying,
I am. I just want y'all to know, white girl.
I'm white.
She was on white people time, y'all, too. I told her to be here at a certain time, and she was earlier than that certain time. But I gave her the black people time, and I came on the regular time, right? So, but she was here. Next time I'll know.
In my defense, actually, I was always late until I met my husband, who's Mexican American, and his time is 30 minutes early or you're late. And so now I've adapted.
So you was on black people time before.
I used to be, yes. But yeah, so I wanted to, as a white woman, start to learn the skill of lifting up other women, particularly women of color, and letting them speak, trying to get conversation going from women of color and hear what they have to say, and start to practice that idea of listening and seeing what other ideas are out there besides just my own.
And I think that, like, I keep saying it's going to take all of us. I've been telling my community, we're never going to be able to stop racism in the black community. That it has something to do with us, but how can we talk to people who don't respect us, as far as the ones that are racist? Not because I have white friends. That sounds so cliche, but y'all know what I'm talking about. But but when you're trying to have a conversation with someone to make a change that doesn't respect you, they don't hear well. They don't listen. Right. And so it's going to take some strong, powerful, multicultural people to be able to stop this thing that's going, the trajectory of this. If we don't start changing the mindsets of our children, we in for a rough time in the black community and the minority community. And I think that now is the time. We don't have any modern day activists. And they don't have to be all black. It could be anybody that's standing up for the cause. And I hate to say it like this, and I really don't mean, I just want to know this is how important it is you gotta be ready to die for this.
Yeah.
and I don't mean really take out no guns. I just mean that you have to be able to you want to passionately be able to go forth, and we can't give up.
Right.
And I think in the Black community, we always retreat. No justice, no retreat, though, on mine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be out there beating stuff up, though. However, I am going to have to keep on and keep on and keep pushing, because we're not pushing, and it's gotten us nowhere since the Civil Rights Movement. What have we done?
Right.
There's nothing that's really taken place, and I do think that not just police-wise, but everywhere, we have to, like, we got to start doing something.
Yeah.
And so I really am privileged to have you in here today, because
thank you.
I think it takes courage. I know people are probably looking at you like, what are you doing? What do you know about anything?
Right.
And so, and I don't know
Yeah.
if is that the response that you're getting, or?
I actually haven't mentioned it to a whole lot of people yet that,
Are you scared?
No, I'm just nervous about being recorded in general, but it's awkward, and I know part of our discussion was going to be about the book that we were talking about, White Fragility, and it's just a conversation that it's difficult, but I feel like this is one of those moments where I get to grow as a person and learn more about the world around me, and be someone who can make a difference for any community, specifically minority communities, by learning more about where I stand as a person and understanding the privilege I have had and the experiences that I've had, how they've affected the way my life turned out. Because I think that that's important to realize that the world is bigger than yourself. It
is, and all you can see is what yourself sees, or what the experiences that yourself has. So I remember in college taking racial ethnics and all that, and I remember some of the non-African American, non-minorities, white folk. No, I remember they saying, cops don't racially profile, and it's really not that big of an issue. And I used to be like, well, how would you know?
Yeah.
If somebody's not racially profiling you, like, how would you know? And why would I lie? Is my questions. And so I was interested in the book. We're going to get into that later. I'm interested at the name of the book, so you don't be mad at me because I have issues. I need to understand. And I want to get your take on it. However, first we're going to do... So I asked Megan to come here because I'm interested in some of the stereotypes and the thoughts maybe that, because I can't think in your brain, like, what is some of I know that was some of the first discussions we were having in the group, and at this time I wasn't doing the podcast, so I didn't snapshot, because I've been doing a lot of research, y'all. People are mad at me, okay? But I really want to know, like, some of the things, and let's just talk about them. I started thinking about some of the stereotypes I have, so I'm just going to talk about my mom. I talk about my mom on every single... She didn't play all that. Mm-hmm. We could not talk crazy about people. We could not have... So I don't think I have, and maybe some will come up, but I don't be like, well, white people this and white people that, and, like different stereotypes. I do sometimes maybe look at people like, are they going to lynch me though? Mm-hmm. Like when we were just talking about traveling. Sometimes when I travel to some of those smaller places, I be like, am I going to be safe though before I go? Right. But like I don't have any that I know of. I'm gonna keep thinking. Right. Any stereotypes that I know, and I'm privileged to have lived with a mother that's so ethical. My mom and my dad were not about that. You're not. You can't. You just shouldn't judge people. Mm-hmm. And so, and she got us out of the South really early in our lives. So, and Arizona's not that bad. Arizona, people be like, it's so racist here. Y'all do not want to go somewhere else. Mm. Because y'all will be mad. I think, and if they are, it's inside them. But in the South, they blatantly disrespect you. They don't care. They blatantly are racist. It doesn't matter. It does not matter at all. So, okay, stereotypes about Black people. Don't be nervous.
No, I'm not. I just so there's one like that I realized actually came like full frontal to me was a couple of weeks ago. We went up to cabin with my two best friends who are Black, and one of them brought with her a coworker, and he walked in and he had like the white tank top and the silk cap, and he wearing slides, and so I instantly went, he's probably not that intelligent, or he's probably not that well spoken. And within 10 minutes of talking to this man, it was like, no, he doesn't speak the Queen's English, but who the hell cares? Like, he knows he knows all these things, and he's very and even if he didn't know specific things, he just was genuinely like a good person. You could just feel like the
stereotype is wife beaters. She said the silk house. She's talking about the do-rag. Yes. The wife beater, the do-rags, and the house shoes make you think that somebody might be not as educated, a little gangster.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you got checked.
I got checked.
Okay.
Yeah, very quickly.
But y'all gonna be mad at me, world that's listening. I mean, I do have to check myself because I be like, oof. Like, and then I have to immediately, and I always say with stereotypes, I think that we all have certain type of stereotypes that we see, but it's the second thought. So when I'm teaching culture competency, I'm like, it's not about what I originally thought. It's about did I act upon that thought, or did I let a conversation happen? So okay, that's a good one. Okay, next, what's another one?
So another one was, well, just in general, like. Actually, it was similar to a point that you brought up with Portia on your last episode, but making the assumption about certain kinds of music, and hearing, rap music or hip hop, or has a lot of inappropriate quote unquote words, but words that are swear words and all this thing, and saying all this about doing that to a woman or doing this and that, and I just assume that as soon as that car next to me pulls up and they're blaring that with their windows down, that if it's a nice car and it's a black person, that there must be some other thing going on in their life that is not a legitimate job, or that there's some kind
she's so nice. So they like sell drugs or something.
Yes. And so,
but have you noticed that though this particular music is becoming the kind of norm for all cultures?
Yes, because I am a teacher and my students of all backgrounds are listening to,
and that's a problem. I'm sorry, Portia didn't agree with me last year. I love you, girl. Hey, girl.
I could tell she was like,
however,
I'm gonna have to disagree.
I actually made a post this week in the Let's Talk Sis group. I don't know. Are you in the Let's Talk Sis group?
Yes.
Okay. Did you see the Megan Thee Stallion post?
I didn't read through it.
Do you know who Megan Thee Stallion is?
I know one of her songs.
Which is what, Savage?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not a bad one. That's not as bad. And so she has been, from Times Magazine, deemed one of the most influential people in the United States. I had to make a post about it. I didn't even say, I just said, let's tap in. Let's see what it is. And people were like, well, she's doing her thing. And I'm like, but what are you influencing? Because anybody can be an influence.
Right.
But what are you influencing people to do?
Right. Like, what's your end goal with your...
Well, I don't think they have... I think what most of the general... What people were saying was it's not her job to be a role model. It's not her job to have a goal. Like, she's just making music and she's learned how to make music. And one of the comments was sex sells. I said, but when does that come inappropriate?
I did see
when
that
does
comment.
it come? When does it become that we need to do better? We just got to do better. I mean, like, okay, sex sells, but why are we okay with that?
But why does it have to be the only thing?
Why is that? Why, and what are they? Well, she does this, and this, and all good stuff. All good stuff. However, we don't know her for that. Right. And so when you're talking about influencing my children, you're talking about influencing them into something else. And my ideas don't ever be the popular beliefs, but oh well. I don't care about what's popular. I care about what's going to get us somewhere as a culture.
Right.
And so when we talk about, well, it's only up to the children to be a role model, that's a lie. As a teacher, you're a role model. You don't have a choice. And what would be different between you and the entertainer? Nothing at all.
Right.
As if you're in a position where you are touching whoever's lives. I don't care who it is. You're a role model. You don't have a choice. Role models, I don't see where in the definition of role models where it says that it had to be something you chose.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's if you know that you're in that position because of the way people look up to you, then that should hold you to a certain standard.
Music, I have debated music for a very long time, and it'll get way too deep in here if I even started it today. However, music is a problem. Media is a problem. TV is a problem. And my kids are not sheltered. However, I'm a little, at this age that they are now, I'm not as sheltering about what they see and hear, because I've already instilled the things that are in the values that I want them. So now when they hear stuff like that, it's nothing.
Right.
When people don't have positive role models and positive influences, when they look at this stuff, they are really glorifying this stuff.
Yeah.
I want to be rich. I want to be the next whoever. I'm not gonna name any names on here today, but I want to be that next person. Is that really what y'all want y'all kids to be? And we can say all day, well, the parent should be the best role model. But if you're not doing what I'm interested in, Mama, you are not. I mean, you're an influence, but I'm still looking up to this other person.
Exactly.
To do, if my goal is to be in the music industry and my mama's not in the music industry, you can't role model me into that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I be making up like words, so just bear with me. Did that make sense?
Yes, no, yeah.
So we have to just be like a little more careful. But so yeah, we did talk about music and I get that. You know, you look over, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna have to check my stereotypes within my own community, because sometimes I look over like, oh, okay, where they get that money from? No, where they get that?
Right.
How they, you know, and so stereotypes is a hard thing because they come from somewhere, is what people don't understand.
Yeah, I was thinking about that actually when I was talking to a gentleman earlier, and he was asking me where I was from, and I'm from northern Michigan, and it's white bread. It's just, you know, super, super, super small town. And I started to think about that stereotype about, you know, the wife beater and the slide-on shoes and all that jazz, and it was like, where did I kind of get the idea? And I was like, well, I didn't have any black friends until college, and so
Yikes.
Movies. Like, you know, that would be the first.
And we have to be careful at what we show on the media.
True.
And these are movies that we are directing.
Yes.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah.
These are movies that we directed, and we mad because people look at us some type of way. That's a good point, Megan. Hold up. Yeah. Where else would you say? So when I think wife beater, here go my white thing, right? When I think wife beaters, I think of somebody in a trailer park that's going to beat his wife.
Well, that's another one too, because as you said, thinking about stereotypes from your own culture, like from white virgin, like I have stereotypes about if someone talks with a twang, like then they must be like white trash, or, you know, those assumptions you make because as a child you experienced things or you didn't know any better, and so you took the experience you saw, which typically is through some kind of media, and then, you know, if you don't learn any better or no one tells you any better or teaches you any better, then that becomes reality to you. Because
they do make it seem like if you don't talk proper English that you are not the most educated.
Right.
But I remember moving from being around people in the South. I didn't necessarily live in the South. I was raised in Virginia. Well, I was born in Virginia, but my dad's side of the family is from North Carolina. And just being around people, and just words are not pronounced properly, right? And so I've always been like, are y'all? But they're not uneducated. That's just what you're around and what you say. Like a lot of black people say, I'm gonna say this wrong. No, we say axe, like AXE instead of ask. I'm going to ask you. And I have to catch myself. I say, if I'm just talking, I'm like, I'm going to ask you something. And the guy was like, you can't ask anybody anything. I was like, huh? And then I was like, oh, I'm going to ask you. So, yeah, those are so anyway, so stereotypes are really interesting. And I we just got to stop just judging people.
Yeah.
And I think that, like I said, like I tell people in class, like stereotypes are something that you could think, because it's just going to happen. But do you react and do you treat people that way because of that?
Right.
What's interesting about the story you said, or what I appreciate about the story you said, you took time to actually listen to the guy instead of just saying, oh, he's just stupid and probably, so I'm just not going to have a conversation with him. And that's what people do.
Right.
And with the position that I'm in, and I'm an entrepreneur, but I do training. And I think people look at me and they think I use double negative. I be acting all up in class. And I think they look at me and don't know I'm as educated as I am. I'm educated. I am. And I know what I'm talking about. And I have to, it seems like I have to fight more for that, because I come in and I'm never going to be your stereotype. If I want to have my afro out to here, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to wear my hair in a certain way that I have to. And I don't know if you know this, we have to wear our hair in a certain way when we go to interviews so that we can look, we can blend in with white people.
Really?
That is too much. Ain't nobody doing all that.
Yeah.
They have tried to rule out dreads and braids and all that in the school, saying it's related to gangs. Ain't nobody doing all of that. That don't even make any sense. I'm wearing braids. This is my culture. Yeah. And so why can't I look how you looking at me?
That's just...
This is my culture.
And that's the kind of stuff that, as a white person, and even though my two best friends are black, I think that sometimes my best friend Carrie has just kind of like hidden some of that from me, because she just felt like well, you wouldn't really understand it. And as I've had more conversations with her, it's become very apparent to me that there's so many things that I just haven't been aware of. And that's what...
But how would you?
Right. But
so asking... Don't feel any type of way.
I know. But I think because as much as I truly, truly love my two best friends, and they're sisters to me. Like they have been for a long time. And it just breaks my heart that there have been people in my life like them who I've loved so dearly, and I didn't stop to ask. And so I feel like, but not like that I'm blaming, like, what's done is done, but I want these kinds of conversations to keep going so people do ask. So people do take the second to just be like, how are you? And how are things with you? And not only just that.
You know what's interesting, what you won't understand is that we don't think about that as much. Like I'm having to think about this stuff as we're talking because it's just really just something that we just deal with.
Yeah.
And I'm tired. I'm just going to be honest. I'm tired. I don't want to have to think about none of that. I don't want to have to and I usually don't. I'm going to be honest. So I'm thinking about it within my community, for my community, but I be just me. Mm-hmm. If you don't like me, you don't like me. If you didn't like how my hair was and that's what it is, and I didn't need to be there for you because I'm an asset to you anyway.
Right.
You know, that's my thoughts. But so many people in my community are beat down on a daily basis. You said that you taught in Levine, and I don't know if you felt this, but that is the most horrible school district. Not the most, one of the most horrible school districts because they are really not concerned with the education. The parents don't get involved like they should get involved. These kids you were kind of a little bit further down the street, which is a little bit better. Desert Meadows is a little bit better. My kids had some experience there too. But, you know, just the morale of that area, it's almost like, oh, well, they don't care, so we don't care either. How you know we don't care?
Yeah. How
do you know? And so I don't know what your experience was, but I want to shift into talking about this book that you've been having us read. Now I'm going to be honest. It took me a long time to download that book because I didn't want to read it. I didn't even want to. But I want to read it so that I can have. I think that in the what you're building in this community, real change by real women on Facebook, y'all find it, is that we need to have somebody else's experience. Take on it, right? Yeah. Somebody of color's take on it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm gonna do it only for you. But as I was reading, I was like, this is a lot. So I'm mad because I broke my phone and my notes are in my phone, and then I couldn't log in, and because I always highlight and write in there, and you know the electronics is so now I don't even remember. But as you're talking, I'll get that. But why did you pick this book? So it's White Fragility by, who is it by? White Fragility
by Robin DiAngelo.
Okay.
And like the subtitle is Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism.
Okay.
And so, I mean, really, it's become popular. I mean, it's a New York Times bestseller, but obviously more recently, a lot of people have been buying it. And I thought, to me, what drew me to it was, why is it difficult? Why has it always been difficult for me as a white person, or for anybody I know who's white, to have that conversation? Because it usually gets deflected into, no, that's just, you know, that wasn't racism, or trying to deflect away from true issues.
And that's what I was talking about a little bit. I was just interested at the title. I break everything down, okay? Mm-hmm. White fragility, the quality of being easily broken or damaged. What are y'all broken or damaged from?
I think more what I saw it as is the fragility of like the white ego. That's how I took it, as like this fragility to talk about racism because white people don't want to recognize, well, at least in my experience, not speaking for everybody, but that there are races, or sometimes be like, well, we're all the same and we're all, you know, and
so minimizing.
Yeah,
they talked about that too.
And it's so fragile for a white person's in a fragile state when race is brought up and gets very defensive. And
why y'all so defensive? Ain't nobody got time for that. You ain't got nothing to be defensive about. Love you.
And
why
I think
are you defensive?
Realistically is, like you said earlier, you know, how would you know or be able to experience that kind of racism, or how would you know that isn't racial profiling? Because white people don't have to deal with that factor in their life of having their skin color be something that they're judged by or that decisions are made on. And so I think it's like, it's
what's the defense?
I remember
what's the irritation? What's the defense? Why?
I think it's one, it's discomfort.
Okay.
It's discomfort. And I also think there was a good analogy that several people have made, I know, about a fish in water. Like if you're trying to describe, water to a fish, like they don't get it.
Because they're always in...
They don't get the concept. And so I think for the majority of white people, it's like, what are you talking about race? Like race isn't an issue. It's not an issue. Why are we talking about it? So
what would you say is like when you see the George Floyd and George Floyd, yes, on his neck and he couldn't breathe him. The recent one, Breonna Taylor.
Right.
What would you say that is? Just a coincidence?
No, and I'm not saying that race isn't an issue.
I know you're not saying that, but I'm saying what would most people say? What would you think that, what is those issues? What are those things? What are you, like, what, so what would we call that?
So I've been watching a lot of documentaries as well lately too, and kind of been getting the background to all of this legal and institutionalized racism. And so what my thought is that as the years have gone by and since that Law and Order started back in the 80s, that it's almost been ingrained within white families from older school thinking of like, well, black communities end up in those situations because they do X, Y, and Z. They were selling drugs and no one wants to have the conversation of, why do you think that someone would resort to doing something like that?
Not only that, just because we sell drugs outside on the street don't mean y'all about y'all, because y'all the one that's really bringing the hard stuff. Yeah, like in pounds and pounds and pounds. And there's a law, and I can't remember right now. I don't have it written down. I don't have my notes. But you can have like kilos of coke and get less time than you can have, and if you had like a single crack rock, right? And people don't understand that law was made because at that time when crack came out, black people did crack, right. White people, rich white people did coke.
Right.
And so now you have these laws, and we're going to talk about voting a little bit later, just for a few minutes. But when you talk about voting, that's why we need to vote, because we have, these laws are made based upon race.
Yeah.
Race, and people don't know that, and in our community we'll say, well, we don't have to infiltrate the system of politics. Yes, we better.
Yes.
We better, because then we can be part of those kind of things being looked at differently.
Exactly.
But that's an interesting, there's a reason why we're being treated that way.
Well, I think it's just institutionalized. Yeah, it's been indoctrinated into so many white families, I think, that there isn't a problem, so why discuss it? Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of mentality. Keep your head in the sand, everything's fine.
But it's not broke because it doesn't affect you.
Yeah. I think a lot of that is, there's a lot of that going around right now. Like, if it doesn't directly affect me, then it's not my problem.
It's not my business, yeah.
And obviously the whole concept of humanity is converse to that. So
that is definitely a problem, where I'm not an animal,
right?
And so why do I have to be treated like that? But I do think I was in class with a girl. She's from Canada, and so she said, she was like, we were talking, and I don't know how it got on. It was around the time when the rioting was happening, and she said, "But what is that? That doesn't even make any sense. Why would you mess up people's stuff?" And I'm always listening. Mm-hmm. There was a girl in the back. She gets all row. She's like, "But why not? But why not?" I said, "Hold on, sis. Let me hear let me listen to what she's saying." She said, in Canada though, it's very multicultural, and their police still only have batons. She was like, so I don't understand, like, why. I said, yeah. I said, well, you wouldn't understand then. I said, because you're coming from a place where you shelter to racism. And it's like we broke.
Yeah.
When that happens, it's because we tired. And then I said, it's like somebody ignoring you and you just explode. But I was really interested that she was really just naive. It wasn't that she wasn't, at the end of it, she was like, I guess that makes sense. But if we have to start having those conversations.
Yeah.
People have to stop being, we have to stop having a defense mechanism. We got to let our guard down, and we got to be able to hear the other person, because most of this is about fear.
Yeah.
Most racism is just about fear of the unknown. I don't know it, so I don't want to talk about it. So I have your question, so I'm going to ask, I want to ask the question so you can answer. Oh, this ain't even on here. Hold on, let me pull it up. It's in Real Woman.
Real
Change by Real Woman.
Yes.
Is that where you posted the questions at?
I did, yeah.
So we're going to get into a few of the maybe just one, because I've been talking a lot. Y'all got to forgive me. Y'all know how I am. Real Change by Real. Let me pull the group up real fast.
I do have the questions here if you want me to read one.
I don't, because then I want you to answer. I don't want you to read any answer.
All right.
Hold on a second. Because I can't, it's really hard. I haven't posted any responses because it's really hard. I can't answer. I can respond to what you're asking. You know what? Do you want to slide your paper over here?
Oh, no, for
or you
sure.
got notes on there? Oh, there you go. Hold on. Let's take a minute. Okay. Here's one of the questions. Why do so many white people feel so confident in their opinions on racism, even as they live their lives in segregation?
Well, I think that it's similar to what we talked about, where it's just been, for generations, has been overlooked and swept under the rug. And so it becomes very familiar to just deny the conversation. And so, excuse me, I think that it's just this heads in the sand kind of mentality. Like if I don't look at it, then there's no problem. If it's not affecting me, there's no problem. And so then I can be confident, well, then there's no issue. So I don't, everything's fine and everything's rosy. And they were kind of talking about
the information before the introduction, the forward and all that stuff. And they were talking about how, like, when there was a culture competency type group at work, that people are like upset that they have to even take the class because I'm not prejudiced and I'm not racist and that's not me. And so, and is it a big deal anyway? And I think that it doesn't matter though. Like, why are you so mad? I keep having to, and I know I keep asking you this, but even if you have to take a class that it probably doesn't necessarily affect you, why are you so angry?
I don't understand that either, because as much as I have felt that defensiveness feeling in certain situations when I was younger, I don't get the anger behind it either. Because to me, if I'm angry, then there's something that I'm avoiding. Exactly. Because I don't want to deal with it.
Because why else be angry?
Exactly.
Just take the class, figure it out, come with it. So I think that that's because those things that we don't talk about, that we really feel. So you saw somebody come in with the wife beater and all that, and you had an emotion, and you feel like that.
Right.
But you're just going to minimize that and look past that and say, oh, well, that's not stereotype. That's not really racism, but that's a stereotype. And if you're angry, then there's a reason why.
Right.
That you're angry. I want to talk about, I don't feel like I have all the questions on here.
I only put like 3 of them on there, but...
Okay, I was like, go ahead and ask one of them then.
What are some constructive ways to use your emotional reactions?
Before that, do you have another question besides that one? Because I want to talk about that in the end, because that's solutions.
Okay. Yeah, there was a passage that asked you to identify that, like, kind of got under your skin, essentially.
And so tell us yours.
So the one from mine was on page 11, and it said, right now you may be thinking of all the ways that you are different from other white people, and that if I just knew how you'd come up in this country or were close to these people, grew up in this neighborhood, endured that struggle, or had that experience, then I would know that you were different, that you were not racist. And so it was like... It took me a while to find. I had to read it like a couple of times, and then when I thought about it, it was like I kept glossing over that one when I would read it, because I didn't want to look at that and accept that, no, I'm not really different. I have implicit biases. I have stereotypes. I have situations where I've judged people solely on the way that they look or the color of their skin. And so it made me remind myself that regardless of what past experiences I may have, every moment that I'm breathing is a moment to make a different decision or realize where I may be going wrong or what things I need to change. And so it kind of made me question myself a little bit more and think more about that kind of growth.
So, I just thought about this. As a teacher, mm-hmm. what can you do to, while you're in the system, to make the system more, do you see there's places where color becomes an issue in the school system, in the educational system?
I have, yeah. Thankfully, where I'm at right now, we have a very diverse group, and we also have a very diverse staff, including two very strong Black leaders. And so they're very much about making equity, and diversity is one of our pillars. And so, but yeah, I have seen it. I have seen it by making that assumption that a student of color comes from a home that doesn't have a father, that, well, they're going to have a problem or they're going to be misbehaving, or making assumptions or having implicit biases that some educators or people in the system are not willing to recognize, and then the children feel the brunt of that. Yeah.
I remember one of the schools telling me that they don't give the children homework because in this or they don't give them homework, or they don't grade it as very weighty, mm-hmm. because children in this community don't have the support they need at home. I was like, well, give my kids some homework.
Right.
This don't make any sense, but they really don't give a whole lot of homework in the community. So I grew up in East Mesa, and they would listen. We had homework.
Yeah.
But when my kids were like in junior high, and I'm like, why don't that? So my son would struggle last year in his first, like with all this homework, because they didn't really have too much. It was like a worksheet. Do this worksheet. Yeah. And I'm like, but you're in like 8th grade.
Right.
I need you to, like, why are they not? And I asked that question. Here's one thing that you may not even have thought of, because as I'm listening to you and your white girl talk, which I love you, but you probably don't know, because it's just how you talk, right? Mm-hmm. So here's the thing. What's the test? What's the test they have to do in 3rd grade, and what are these tests?
Oh, the Azella test, or there's
the test that they say they're not going to let them go to the net, and I used to call it
the move on one reading.
Okay, so I don't really know what it's called. I just know that I get this, but I remember my daughter struggled, and here's what I told because I will go to the district and everything. Mm-hmm. I said these tests. I said they are very whitewashed. Mm-hmm. And he was like, what are you talking about? Because so she kept failing, and I was like, well, give me the information so I can see it. And I'm reading through it, and it's not even a passage. It says, what does this mean in context, right? Well, in context means you have to have a passage so I can get what it means.
Right.
But what it says is something, and his mom told him he eats like a bird, right? There was no information before it or after where I could get that, right? And so I told him, I said, who in the Black community tells anybody they eat like a bird, though? I said, so if there's not information before it and after it where I can draw context clues, these Black children are not good. That's not wow. a universal language at all. Nobody said, we don't say, because we don't, first of all, eat like birds. First of all, no, we stop. But that's not a typical. You said head in the sand. And I had to really think about that, because that's not, and because I'm educated, I'm grown, I can get it after you say it. Right. But that's not an idiom that I use. That's not a idiom. That's not an idiom that I use.
Even the eat like a bird thing, that was a common phrase in my family. So no, it's not. That culturally is.
But you wouldn't see that. But when she kept failing, I was like, well, this is why she's failing.
Right.
This is not something that's normal. And she's only, I think this was 3rd or 4th grade or whenever it was. I'm like, where else would she get that? And my children, at that time, I'm not a fan of a lot of media watching TV and stuff like that. So where was they going to get that from?
Exactly.
And so I said, this is why these children are not passing these tests. Get these tests out of here, or make them universal. Yeah. Because that's not, and it was some other ones, but that's the one that stuck in my head. And I'm like, yeah, and it was literally not information. I said, this was about reading, and it was about context. And I said, but y'all don't have any information before it and after it, and what does it? And he was like, you're right. And I was like, this is not okay.
Right.
This is not okay, because these are the tests that judge whether they're going to be successful or not, or whether they can move to the next grade.
Right.
And what we gonna do? So I think that even there, that to me that shows, and I don't think that has anything to do with racism. That just has to do with whoever made those tests. But again, if my black counterparts are not infiltrating these type of systems, who's gonna fight for that?
Right.
Tamika Donnell Howell, whole name, they know me. They be like, oh, here she come. Hey girl, how are you? Hey sir, hi. I'm all at the school.
Yeah.
And in Levine, they always tell me, well, you're the only one complaining about it. I know, because my black counterparts that live there, and maybe they're the way they were raised or whatever, they think that some stuff is normal, and this stuff isn't normal to me.
Right.
I've had teachers yell at my kids and do all that, and some other parents may think that's okay. Well, that's that teacher's job. No, it's not.
Right.
It's not her job.
No, that's not okay.
And the things that I'm thinking of is stuff that needs to better my children, and I'm about positive behavior support, not let's yell them into. We already been there. We did that. I don't know if you've been listening, but I talk a lot about the Willie Lynch letter. I'm not going to perpetuate the same things that he has done. He gave the slave owners to do to keep us in bondage. Right. And so okay, so real quick, we're gonna talk about, we got like 10 minutes, y'all. You're gonna have to come back, girl.
Okay.
So the question, the constructive criticism question, let's talk about that.
Okay. Emotional reaction. So
what are some constructive ways to use your emotional reactions when their opinions on racism when your opinions on racism are challenged?
Well, I'm a bit of a hippie, and so I've been practicing meditation for a while, and so my instant thought was curiosity, because that's a big thing with meditation, is just get curious about your reactions, your emotional.
Why?
Just what is behind that, or what's going on, and being curious about that, and recognizing that what's really going on, if I have an emotional reaction that's strong and I want to pull away from the conversation, is that it's like a defense mechanism that I've developed to protect that familiar state of being, of essentially feeling white superiority in a sense. And so recognizing that, and then being open, like we talked about earlier, to, okay, we'll set that aside for just a second, recognize it, and then proceed with this interaction, and see where this leads, see what you can learn from this interaction. Right. And I'm trying to really have that idea of, whatever interaction I have with a person, even if it's negative, there's something I can learn from it.
And I think that's self-reflection, and a lot of people don't have that in all situations. Don't have nothing to do with just racism.
No,
why did I have a feeling about that? What's happening? What's going on? Is it some trauma? Is it some beliefs? Is it whatever it is? Like, and I remember I went to UMOM, and I was talking to the girls and the ladies there, and we did a self-reflection thing, and I said, we always have to look in that mirror and see, why did I act like that? Because there's a reason. You don't just, nobody, listen, we're not crazy.
Right.
We didn't just have a reaction for no reason. So I like that. I think I'm gonna start doing. I'm gonna be better. I'm gonna be better at that. I wanted to talk, because I had wrote this down. I was about to go after it, but I keep hearing you say white privilege, basically. So there's white privilege, because people tell us it's not.
Yes.
Yeah, there's white privilege.
Oh yeah. I mean,
what?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just the discussion we had about the test. I mean, that right there, because even as a teacher, when I would see those kinds of tests, and I would look and say, like, well, there's even questions about, like, going to somewhere where there's snow. You're assuming that every child, regardless of race, just every child in here has been and seen the snow and can have a point of reference in their life to be able to apply that knowledge to. So even just little things like that. But yeah, I completely agree that there is. And I also know a story that my best friend Carrie had told me is when she goes to, because she's from the same area I am, really small town. And when they go back there and shop, they've made it into a game, just, I guess, to keep the humor, but they count how many people in the grocery store will grab onto their purse when Carrie walks by.
And I don't nobody want your purse, man.
Right. That's what Carrie's like. I probably make more money than you anyway. So
we did some of those exercises in my racial ethnics class where we went to Scottsdale Fashion Center, and to see, like, we were looking at makeup, and they were like putting the makeup on a towel for, it was me, a Hispanic lady, and a Native American lady, and then our white classmates came in, and they were putting it on their lips and on their really? And they were like, and I was like, okay, and that opened my eyes, because I haven't had too many stories where people treat me some type of way, thank God. Yeah. Right, but I was like, oh, so we don't get, because what's on my skin, right? And my skin probably cleaner than yours, let's truth be told. Yeah, y'all know black don't crack. Stop it. But anyway, but what are some white privilege? What else would you say is some of the examples that you can think of that?
I would say immediately, getting pulled over has been a consistent example. But when I get pulled over by a police officer, my instant reaction has always been, well, my mom's going to be mad at me when I was a teenager and I'm going to get a ticket, or, oh God, I hope I don't have to pay this. There's no question of, will the interaction with this police officer go any other way? Than
a ticket.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see how scary that could be, though?
Oh, no, yeah.
I would really hope my heart didn't have to beat. Because the only thing is, am I going to get out of this? Yeah. Alive or not? So before we go, I do want to talk real quick, because voting is coming up. Mm-hmm. The voting is coming up. The election is coming up. Do you vote?
I do.
Do you vote in all aspects, locally and?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
Why is voting important, or is it?
I think it is. I know I went through a phase where I thought, well, there's too many people and mine doesn't count, but. If everybody says that, then we have results similar to what's going on right now. So, it's definitely important. I think sometimes, too, people get so caught up in the presidential election, and not that that's not important, especially right now, but we forget about our local communities. And I think it's extra important there as well, because all of the little pieces come together to make up that big picture. And if you just vote, or even if you vote and you only vote for the president and you're like, okay, well, I'm done, that's one piece of the puzzle, and everybody else that you're putting in the Senate and the House is a factor as to what direction laws
comes from more of those local votes. Exactly. The local polls that we have, the local elections that we have, and those are way more important, because I don't think people realize that the president really don't have a whole lot of power to do anything. I don't think that people, I'm like, where was y'all at in government? Because what happened is in the last election, Hillary won, but Trump won Hillary won the popular vote. Mm-hmm. He won the electoral vote, and the electoral college is what matters, the electoral college. But how we get people into those is by these local people that are in the Senate and that go up the chain of, I call it the command, but the chain of politics, and they end up being in the House of Representatives, right? And so if we don't put in those right people in the local the voting system, the right local cities and counties and all that, then we're always gonna see kind of these white older men in these positions that can always have the presidential candidacy go that, or presidential election go that way. I definitely think vote both ways. However, it's really, if are we coming out for that presidential vote, we are not being representative. We never will. People are mad at Obama. Oh, he couldn't. Mm-hmm. Y'all don't understand. There's nothing that Obama can. He is not. They're not the highest as far as making laws. Right. They just can maybe veto something if they feel all they are like the face. So I think that we have to understand what voting means. Right. Black people will say their vote doesn't matter, right? And I say this: if you never voted, we have never voted historically, hardly ever. If you look at historical numbers about how we voted, how do we know? Right. We voted Obama in, so we say, like, everybody went in, but Obama, that was meant to be. Like, that's what it is. But how do we vote? And why would somebody fight so hard to take something away from us that didn't matter?
Exactly.
We just have to figure out how it matters and care. We have told our children that the this world was not, this governmental system was not made for us. It wasn't. No. However, if we infiltrate the system and stay strong. We got to stop. I'm sorry, y'all, but we got to stop being punks. Like, we got to stick it out. We got to say, see, the difference with white privilege versus Black Lives Matter is we are fearful to, y'all will go and do that thing and go for it. Like you said, I'm persistent. I keep calling them and 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 calling them. They gonna hear me. Eventually, we like, forget it. They ain't gonna hear like they never hear, and then we get back to that mentality because that was something that was instilled in us, right?
Right.
And so, but we gotta vote, y'all. If y'all not voting, you might as well just not. I don't want you. Don't complain. Don't complain about anything. Unfortunately, I think we're gonna see something we don't want to see in this presidential vote.
I disagree, but I hope that we see the result we need. Well, I shouldn't say I hope. I feel like there's much more of a movement against what we have going on right now. I'm
so glad you're so optimistic.
Well, and I've seen more and more Republicans speaking out, and you know.
So I can only see in my community. If I don't see us doing anything different than we did last year or the last 4 years ago. I don't see more people saying they're going to go out and vote. I still see people saying that it doesn't matter. But here's where I'm going to tell you again where I have the issue. The people that are that has the most seats in the House of Representatives are very old white men who did not change their beliefs about Black people. And the only thing that Trump did was give people a right to say fuck. Oh, excuse me. Forget niggers. That's really what that's what happened, and so the feeling that they felt inside, that they were keeping inside, has now been able to be represented, and that's why we see so much more activity of racism going on right now. And so those people, and that's the only reason, because if we understand it, like I said, it don't matter how many Republicans vote for him. It matters if the House of Representatives is going to vote for him or not.
Yeah.
What are their votes going to be? What do you think? They old, girl.
I know.
They old. Okay, we're gonna be positive.
I'm gonna say that that things are gonna go the way they need to. I can't speculate, but I would want it. That's where I want it to go. So that's where I'm gonna. That's what we're gonna say. That's what I have to hope for.
And if it does, I thank you, because we need. He old too, though. I mean, what he go. Okay, we're not going to talk about that. We do need something to change. However, I think that even if it goes however way it needs to go, what we need to focus on is getting people really involved in the local votes, so that laws and rules and policies and culture can be changed within those places to infiltrate those systems. We're not going to get the police officers to contact us if we don't have anybody in there making them that are saying, hey, like, we need to start talking to people. So I'm sorry, y'all, for cussing. I said I wasn't going to cuss, not never again, but however, listen, this gets kind of deep sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I really thank Megan for coming on the show today. And
thank you. And I did want to say one more thing, is that if votesaveamerica.com is a great place. And also, if you're worried about in-mail ballots, you can get the mail-in ballot, and then you can actually physically go drop it off at a polling place. So if you don't trust it being dropped in the mail, you still can get it at your home, have the time to vote, and then take it to where you need to. I have
mine. I'm getting mine. I mean, I'm already registered. I do this every year.
Ditto.
Last time every 4 years, but last time I actually went and stood in that line at 5:00 in the morning. I got in and got out though, because I did whatever you were supposed to do. But usually I do mail ballots, and I read every single page.
Me too.
What's on our ballot is out right now. I'm gonna post it, but just have that stuff sent to your home if you don't want to go out. And no matter what we think is gonna happen, because even if we don't, let's exercise our right to vote, y'all.
Yeah.
This your girl Tamika, and I'm out this piece. Deuces.